Good day, everybody. Today I'm talking to Vinod Jose, who's the founder of Konglo Ventures. Good day, Vinod. How are you?
Good. Hey, Tony. Good to be on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vinod. Despite your busy schedule, giving us time to interview you and to hear your thoughts and your journey with your business, which is Konglo Ventures.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Excellent. And Vinod, are you happy for me to start off with the first question?
Yeah, let's do it.
Excellent. Can you please share about yourself, Vinod, the place you were born, your education, your passion, the things that you enjoy doing, and one thing that the public might not know about you?
Okay. So I was born in Trivandrum in Kerala, which is in India, and I grew up in Kerala very much between Trivandrum and this place called Cochin. And subsequently, I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering from National Institute of Technology in Calicut. So in terms of education, I also did my MBA from European Business School in Germany, which also included a exchange semester in Copiage in Brazil. So in that sense, that's it in terms of education, like formal education. But I have always been, continuously learning, even after getting out of my universities and schools. So one of the things that I'm really passionate about, and I realized that probably 10 years ago, was investments. And this has been a topic that's just caught my attention. I never knew anything about it for like the first 30 years of my life, because I come from a middle class family where the focus was more on education, getting a job. We didn't have any business background, so in that sense, it's not something that I came across often, and I just stumbled upon it through reading some books, right? And it just made a lot of sense to me, and I found it very interesting, and so that's one of my passions, and I've been trying to learn and put that into practice, right? As and I've been doing that since the last 10 years. Yeah. So your question was about also my one thing that people don't know about me. Well, maybe people who know me as an investor maybe don't know that I'm also I used to dance a lot in the when I was young, and I was part of a professional like dance troupe called Lud Vijay's dance studio in Bangalore, where we were into salsa and other ballroom dancing. So that was a passion of mine as well. Yeah, I had great fun doing that. Salsa is amazing for it's a social dance. So I used to travel a lot, and whenever I went into a new city, I would hit a salsa club, and it was a great way of networking as well. So
good on you, Vinod. Good on you, and I'm sure a lot of your maybe even your friend circles and people you work with might be surprised to hear that you're actually a salsa dancer. Yeah. And just wait for those invites now happening after the interview.
I stopped. I quit though after I got married some 8 years back. So it's taken a backseat. But yeah, I would love to dance for sure.
Good on you, Vinod. Thank you for sharing that. And Vinod, moving on to our next question. Can you please share about your work experiences?
Mm-hmm. So after graduating from NIT Calicut, I got placed into Accenture. So I started there in 2005, and I was there for like 4 years. And to be honest, it was a bit of a, let's say, it's like an accident, right? I didn't know what I was doing, just because it was just about getting the education, getting a job, right? And it didn't make a lot of sense if you look at what I did was mechanical engineering, and Accenture is a technology consulting and IT services company. So it's a completely different shift. But at that point in time, for me, it was more about new experiences in living in new city. Like, so I was in Bangalore. I had, let's say, probably experiencing financial independence for the first time, right? So I'm not thinking about my career per se, but more about the fact that I'm earning, I'm managing my own P&L, right? In that sense, and just experiencing and learning from that perspective. So, but a couple of years into Accenture, I realized that this was not what I want to do for my career. And I actually was interested a lot in business and economy. So whenever I used to read newspapers and I'm reading about these companies and all these events, it's interesting, but I'm not understanding a lot what's happening, right? So, and all these big words, so I knew that I wanted to close that gap. And I thought that MBA was one of the best ways to do that rather quickly. And I also wanted to do that outside India because to use that opportunity to sort of get out of India and get a different perspective, right? So that was the reason why I went to Germany to do my MBA from European Business School. So I was there in Accenture for 4 years, did my MBA, and during the MBA, we had the opportunity to do also internships. So I did a couple of internships. One was in a Swiss management consulting firm called SDI. Another one was with DHL, Deutsche Post DHL. Was there for like 3 months. So those internships were very, interesting. In a different country, completely new topics. So learning a lot. And then once I graduated, I got into a startup in Munich, which was again a completely different direction, right? So I kind of started in corporate, and then into a startup. And just to give some perspective, like when I graduated, like startups, I didn't know anything about startups, right? It's not something that we heard about, and we started hearing about it probably in 2008, 2009, right? But by then we are already out and we are in this corporate world. And so when I got this opportunity, I knew it was okay. It was a risk, but it was also, I knew I will be able to learn a lot. And frankly, I didn't have a lot of options as well, because in Germany, the language is also a constraint. So this was also, from that perspective, quite international. Language is not a constraint. So that's why I jumped into it. And it was a fantastic 1 year where, so the startup's name is 21 Diamonds. They are into e-commerce on diamonds, right? So you can basically configure your jewelry with different kinds of, so you can custom create your jewelry and get it ordered, and you get it in like 3 weeks. That's what they did. And we started in Germany and rolled it out across Europe pretty quickly, because we were funded by Rocket Internet, and that's Rocket's model in terms of going big fast across Europe. So what that meant is, I think I was probably part of the first 5 or even maybe 10 employees that got on board. But you end up wearing different hats, right? So I was in business development. I was also at some point managing suppliers. And I think my last role was as head of finance. So I was managing all the financial reporting, internal, external KPIs, metrics, things like that. So that was a good 1 year where we just grew from like 10 to like more than 100 people. So even to see that, like, how do you scale so quickly? So it was 1 year of a lot of learning. And then I joined this firm called, at that time it was called Bryanston and subsequently renamed as Singular, which was a management consulting firm. And it was founded by ex-BCG principals, and they were focusing on the mining and metal sector. So it was quite interesting how I got to know them, because they were also just starting out. and they were using our office space in the startup because the founders of the startup also knew them because they were also ex-BCG. And so I just, met them and started talking and understood what they were doing. So consulting was actually one of the areas when I went into B school that I wanted to get into, but because of the language barrier, I didn't have a lot of options in German consulting companies. So this was interesting when I learned that they were looking at growing and building a team. I started engaging with them and basically joined them, right? So so it was a completely different shift again. So I just got thrown into this different world where there's a lot of traveling involved. It's a completely new sector. It's mining and metals, and by mining and metals is by definition a global market, right? It's not a local market. So from day one, we were in Africa, in Europe, in China, in India, and that had an appeal to me as well, to be able to travel. So and that's been a amazing ride. I was there for like 7 years, working across all these regions. Learned a lot. Learned consulting, management consulting, working with very large corporates to PE funds, sovereign wealth funds, mid-sized to large corporates, and on all kinds of topics on strategy, commercial excellence, investment, due diligences, right? So in consulting, essentially, you are solving for the top three pain points of your client, and whatever that is, it changes every year. We would cater to that. So it's I was there for 7 years, and then recently I joined another consulting firm which is focused on the water sector. It's called Aman Advisors, and the reason for that mainly is I wanted to stay a bit more at home and closer to where I am. So I'm in the US now. I moved here in 2015, so I wanted to cut down on the international travel. But family, my wife and 2 kids, so just to be closer to home. So Aman is again a management consulting firm and advisory. So we also advise on the transactions that happen in the global water sector. But we have an office in Philadelphia, so that's my that's a great value add for me. So I'm here now since start of this year. Yeah, that's my work experience. It's a bit of technology, it's a bit of startups and consulting. Yeah.
Excellent, Vinod. Thank you for sharing that. And I think after you left your, after you finished your education, rather, and this opportunity to travel, especially I think when people leave their hometowns and venture out to other countries and stuff, their perspective, their cognitive diversity, is much larger in terms of new experiences, interaction in new cultures, new way of doing things. And I think you had all that in your favor. And so it's wonderful to hear that all the experiences and all the caps you had to wear, from being in engineering, and then you did management, then you were managing finances. So you had a holistic, I think, experience in that sense. So thank you for sharing that, Vinod.
Yeah, no, happy to. I think I would recommend it to everyone to definitely travel, and travel in a way, in the sense that, well, you travel for pleasure, that's sightseeing, right? But when I'm traveling as a student, like I'm living there, I'm really part of the local ecosystem. Like I went to Brazil, I was there for 3 months. Like the way you experience Brazil as a student, I don't think you will get that the same way as a tourist. And same in Germany. Like I've lived in different parts of Germany. I actually lived as a volunteer in like 2 families in Germany. So I was with them for like 3 to 6 months time period where after graduation that we had a break. So it was a very a different way of experiencing the German culture, and they're very progressive, they're very warm and welcoming, and so all of this, just to give you a perspective, like in Kerala, just imagine this: if would I let somebody else live in my house for like 2 months, right? A foreigner who is, I don't know, helping me out with whatever projects that I've got going on in my house. It's a radical way of thinking, right? And that's completely normal in Europe. So when I got exposed to all of these experiences, it just widens your perspective and broadens your mind. Yeah.
Excellent,
So,
excellent. Thank you, Vinod, for sharing that. And Vinod, moving on to our next question. Can you tell me, when did you start Konglo Ventures, and what was the inspiration behind this business idea?
right. So Konglo Ventures, we started in 2013. And so what Konglo is, let me give a quick background. It's today it's like a informal angel network where investors who like investing in early stage startups come together, particularly focused on Indian and the US startups. But when it started, it was basically a private investment firm, right? So it was founded by me and two of my friends from NIT Calicut. At that point, this was back in 2013. The reason why we did that is, one, by then we had graduated from college and everyone went into their own different directions in life, right? In terms of career, in terms of their location. So it was a bit difficult to keep in contact with everyone. So we wanted to find a way where it forces engagement, right? So we said, let's do something together where we can pool our expertise and experience, number one. Number two, all of us were outside India, and we wanted to like stay connected to India and find a way which is a bit more meaningful and sustainable. So it's not just about, again, where it creates engagement, but it's not just about charity, right? Where you can have a bit more sustainable impact. And thirdly, we missed this whole, let's say by then we have some professional experience and there is something that we can offer in terms of learnings from our experience, right? So what is a good way to do that? Like I don't want to call it mentorship, but like a way to share our experience, common pool of experiences. So when we looked at all of that, like investing in startups kind of ticked all those boxes. And it's not because we knew anything about investments or anything about startups, but it just, the checklist worked on all these factors for them. So then we were like, okay, fine. So that makes sense. Now let's figure out how to do it. And by then I was also passionate about investments. So I started reading. And so I had some initial understandings about the philosophy and the principles of investing, I would say. How to think about investment, how to think about money, right? Because these are not things that we are taught in school or when we are younger. Like, you just suddenly you just suddenly embrace it when you start working and you get some money and you don't know what to do with it. So my initial years about learning about investment was actually about how do you think about money? What is the philosophy behind all of these? So I was very interested in reading books about that. It's less about formulas and investment, like how do you analyze, like those things are important, but more than that, I think that the foundation that you need when you think about investments is actually how do you think about it, right? What do you want to get out of it? So by the time that we started to start Konglo, I had that sort of, I'd gone through that process. And then I also had this experience in startup, this 1 year in 21 Diamonds. So there was a bit of a background in that sense, but still, it's completely new for us. So what we just decided is, let's just start by doing. We put this initial capital to start a company in Cochin. That's where we registered it. And I guess we also had this Kerala angle in the beginning because we were all from Kerala. And so that's why in the name, the Konglo, the K actually kind of stands for Kerala. And Yeah, I think we just started and we said let's learn by doing. So knowing that mistakes will be made and it's okay, but to learn from the mistakes and then keep improving. Yeah,
Excellent,
that
excellent,
was,
excellent.
the background behind Konglo. Yeah,
Excellent, Vinod. And that's really encouraging to hear too, like, because sometimes, like, business ideas and ventures come through because of the trust of the co-founders. And I think in your case, you said, like, you have your uh, college, friends, like from college. You guys trusted each other, and you thought, okay, we are happy in the company of each other. We have different skill sets, so how can we leverage this
yeah,
so that we can actually work together and enjoy each other's company? So that's very interesting, actually, for a startup, isn't it?
absolutely. I think trust is key, and I think that's like whenever I thought of doing something, I always looked at my close friends who I knew from a long time, right? Than looking out for somebody else new. Because here I didn't have to, like, there would never be, because I've seen a lot of the issues that happens also with founders, right? Where the teams have challenges, and a lot of it is trust issues. So when we started to do this, for me at least, this was not an area I would have to worry about at all, right? No matter what happens, no matter what kind of problem, and there will be tough discussions, right? But that is, those are objective discussions. There's nothing personal, and nobody's trying to cheat anyone. So it's so that was very important for me, that I would only work with people that I trust. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Vinod. And Vinod, moving on to our next question, can you please share about Konglo Ventures' unique product offerings, that which is a standout for your customers? And I think being a fund management business, like your customers, obviously, I think would be startups and investors who might co-invest with you.
Okay. I just want to clarify that we are not managing anyone's fund. We are managing our own fund, right? We're not we're not a fund in the sense that we like a venture capital fund that raises external capital. So all we are doing is, so we have pulled in our own money, but whenever we invest, we have this sort of a pool of investors who know us, uh, who also come along for the ride. So that's why I said it's an informal angel network. You know, so the value proposition is that, um, see, the stage that we come in, it's quite early stage. So you can't, it's not a stage where you can go to a venture capital fund. So it's called, so typically it's like you start and you have like a seed investment, which is friends and family, so, or your own savings, right? And then you have an idea, you go and work at it, maybe make a minimum viable product, have maybe one or two customers. So when you're at that stage, you then want additional capital to further grow. And that's the stage where, these angel investors come in. And angel investors are essentially individuals who either are entrepreneurs or have investment experience, or are people who are professionals and who have, the ability to invest. So it's not easy to find them, right? So they are there, and there's a lot of them out there, but it's a bit disorganized. So as a founder, for you to go and find these maybe 10-20 people that you need to bring together to invest in that round, it's a massive effort. So the value proposition that we offer to the startups is that instead of talking to 10 people, we are coming together as a one group, where it's a much more streamlined process. So even if it is during the pitch and the due diligence and the negotiation and subsequent, after we invest, also sort of the interactions, all of that gets streamlined, because you kind of have like one point of contact or a lead investor. So it's very easy, and you get the ticket, right? So instead of collecting 10-20,000 from 10 different investors, you're getting 100,000 or 150,000 in one shot. So that's what the benefit is for the startups. Now, for the investors who are co-investing with us, the benefit for them is that now, so we have a deal pipeline, right? So there's a lot of inbound deals, referrals that keep coming. So we have the deal pipeline. We have experience in investing. So in the due diligence in terms of assessing, we have some experience. And the fact that there are a lot of different people in this activity. So I don't know all the answers, but I can leverage the expertise of my co-investors. It allows for to make less mistakes. So in a way, we are trying to replicate the setup that a venture capital fund has, because they have a dedicated team to do all this. They have a dedicated team to source deals, to do the due diligence. So we are creating that in an informal way. So the co-investors get those benefits, right? If you are in a fund, if you invest as a LP in a fund, a limited partner in a fund, there is a cost to that. So the funds typically charge 2% management fee annually and 20% in carry, which is the, let's say, the performance bonus that the fund managers get. Here, there is no cost, right? All we are doing is we're just leveraging each other's experience and expertise. So in that sense, there is a lot of value to the investors who are part of a network as well. Absolutely. So our value proposition is, so we are doing this. We are happy to share, right, our experiences, and specifically, I think if you look at the portfolio, somehow we definitely have indexed more towards Kerala. So I think even in the investors, a lot of our co-investors, I think more than 90% are people who are like NRIs or business people in Kerala, right? So there is definitely a Kerala angle, both on our portfolio and on our investor side. But it's not limited to that in any means, but it is there. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Vinod. And I think, when a group of investors come together, and if that network is strong, there's always this opportunity to leverage that strength in different markets, different sectors, because everyone is, keeping an eye out for opportunities. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think it's leveraging the strength of the team in a way, and it sounds like a good way to organize things. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And Vinod, moving on to our next question, could you please share about the highs in your business, Konglo Ventures, and for you personally before the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world?
So I guess I would probably talk about if it's before COVID. So one thing I did is, after startups, and especially after move to the US, I also wanted to diversify a little bit, and I got into a new asset class, which is real estate. So I identified an opportunity in Philadelphia where there's this really good business model to invest in real estate. So I spent like the first couple of years just studying the market and analyzing how to go about it. And then I got into it. So I started in 2018, but in 2019, the second half of 2019 was a big push. So I ended up buying like 6 properties. So that was that was let's say a high, because if you look at the amount of effort that goes behind doing a real estate deal and to complete that cycle. So I'm talking about buying properties at a discount, renovating them, leasing them out, and refinancing to get my investment back, all within a 6 to 12 month cycle. So to go through that cycle for those properties, I think in 2019 that was a big push. So I was pretty happy with that. And on the startup side, definitely the one success that we had, it was where one of the investments that we had in early on, we got an exit. So it was Profoundus, and they got acquired by Full Contact, which was a US company. So that was definitely a success. And there are the others in the portfolio are still, some of them are doing really well, have gone on to like Series B funding and so on. And the others are still a bit early stage to talk about. So in startups, the investment life cycle is quite long. So you're looking at like 5 to 10 years. And so on that side, that was good. And then in so the real estate, and for me personally, again, joining Aman was also I would say a high. That actually was in Jan 2020. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Vinod. Thank you. So, Vinod, if you look at Konglo Ventures and the seed investments that it has made in startups, and I believe you said it's most of the businesses are based out of Kerala. So, can you touch on some of the businesses that are actually doing pretty well in terms of their ideas, and you are really looking forward to a good return on investment into the future with you don't have to share all about all of them, but some of them that you are really hopeful about.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify the what we invest in is not just companies that are in Kerala, but it might be that there is a Malayali founder or there is some link to Kerala. Yeah. Now the second part is we look for three kinds of business models. So one is companies that have a cost base in India, or let's say a large part of their cost base in India, but their market is in the US or Europe, let's say. Yeah. Because that's where there are a lot of arbitrage you can get. The second is companies that have like really or let's say Indian companies solving Indian problems, right? So one thing that we've learned is you can't just copy paste ideas from from the US and execute in India. It doesn't work because India is unique. So India has its own unique problems. So if you solve for that, there are very large opportunities in India. So there are companies that do that. And then there are companies that are like really truly world-class global companies, right, out of India. So it's mostly product or even it can also be services. So those are the three sort of buckets that we look at. So I think the ones that I'm hopeful for, the first one would be Good Methods Global, which is our first investment. And their product called CareStack is a dental ERP, comprehensive dental ERP, which is looking at the dental market in the US. And they have a big delivery team out of Kerala actually. So that perfectly fits our first bucket, right? So they are on a pretty good track. Raised Series B funding last year. Another one, let's say if I talk about more recent investments, is Zoco. So we invested in Zoco earlier this year. And what they are doing is they're building out this platform on top of WhatsApp to enable commerce on WhatsApp, right? So if you think about WhatsApp, it's one of the largest untapped social media platforms in India. I think there are 400 million people on WhatsApp, but it's not monetized. So now WhatsApp strategy has changed where they are allowing third parties to engage on the platform. So they've opened up their APIs. So what Zoco is basically doing, and there are other companies that are doing it as well, but so if you as a business want to engage with your customers via WhatsApp, they are giving you that technology platform to do that. So think of the way online ads are working right now. So let's say I see an ad on Google or Facebook, and I click on it. Then I maybe go to the website, and there are so many steps still that from that point in time to make a purchase, and also even engage with the customer, engage with the company. There is no direct channel to talk to anyone. So what the beauty of WhatsApp is that in that ad, you can, let's say, have a WhatsApp the icon. If I click on it, the WhatsApp window on my phone opens, and I have a direct conversation with the company. So you're reducing the number of steps there. For the companies, it's a great way to engage with the customers, and for the customers, multiple use cases get solved. So be it on sales, be it on customer service, on order tracking, a lot of things. And you can actually, so they can show you the product catalog on WhatsApp. You can select, you can chat, you can have that conversation, purchase, and complete a transaction on WhatsApp. So that's a very exciting idea. And I think we just got validation right now with Reliance Geo and Facebook. Their strategy is also going in this direction. So it's validating the idea. Now, what's going to happen in this space is WhatsApp is a very small company in terms of their org setup. They cannot go out and get all these end customers on board. So that is why the way they will get scale is they're opening up their platform so that companies like Zoco go and do that. So they will organize the market in different ways. So let's say company A is focusing on a particular vertical, maybe healthcare. Some other companies might go horizontal in a particular function, or maybe on customer service, right? So Zoco is also kind of figuring out where they want to play. But once they do that, and I'm pretty sure there will be like 10, 15 other companies that are in this space, they will get consolidated at some point in time in the next 5 years.
So thank you, Vinod, for sharing about Zoco and the exciting journey that Zoco is on in the Indian market. And Vinod, moving on to our next question. When the pandemic hit the world, what were the steps you took to mitigate its effect on your business, which is Konglo Ventures?
Yeah, I think so. This is unprecedented, right? So COVID, I think in March, as it started, the immediate focus was just to get a handle on what's going on, because there was a lot of uncertainty. So I think it was, we kind of just paused everything, and I think I made a decision to not venture into too much investments this year and stay more liquid, right? So that, I think that was one reaction. Overall, my view is that unlike the previous recessions, like this has a timeline to it, right? So the pandemic will be solved when the vaccine is out, or let's say they're also talking about herd immunity, but I don't know about that. But even when the vaccine is out, this will come to an end. It will be under control. So there is a definite timeline to it. And what is causing the recession is that people are not able to move and get out of their houses, right? So once that is solved, it'll come back. So in that sense, I'm hopeful that it's not like a doomsday situation. I think it's a good opportunity to, or let's say it's a silver lining, right? I'm not, of course, it's a terrible in terms of the health crisis that it has created, but what we should use this opportunity is to pause and rethink, right? Everything, all aspects of life, and I think especially as mankind, we have to look at the way we are engaging with this planet, right? Are we doing that in a sustainable way? So I think that's what this opportunity is all about. And look, it's cyclical, right? The economy moves in a cyclical way. And so in that sense, I'm not too panicked or worried about, like, this is actually, for investors, this is a great time, because now you can invest and get a lot of good deals, right? So I'm a strong believer in fundamental investing or value investing. So the school of philosophy of what Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger believes in. So in that sense, it's about, when there is panic, that is the time where you have to actually be most diligent and actually go big and invest. Having said that, the in terms of asset classes, I think real estate, we have not seen any changes so far in the US. Actually, it's going up because the interest rates have come down. So there's actually more demand. People are buying more houses. So I don't think I'll get any great deals in real estate this year. Maybe in the next year. Startups is, I think, a pretty good time now because see the entrepreneurs who will come when there is a downturn, they tend to be more gritty, right? When things are doing very well, like valuations are all over the place, and it's a different conversation versus. So if you look at what happened in 2007 8, a lot of companies that actually started in 2008 went on to become unicorns, right? So I think similar to that, the entrepreneurs who will come now, they're not doing it because it's because of the hype of startups, right? They are really gritty guys with experience. So I think it's a great opportunity to invest in such founders now. And so we are actually still, well, not proactively looking, but still kind of having some conversations, right? So Soko we have already completed, but there are a couple of others that we are also looking at. And in fact, there's another one which is more of a fund. So we are actually thinking of also coming on board as an LP in a fund, right? Again, which is focused on early stage investments. Just because it's a bit more, I mean, obviously it's a bit more structured way of operating than what we are doing, where we are very passive. So none of the VCs are actually in the early stage fund space. So these guys are looking at specifically early stage and just bringing that fund approach to early stage. So that is a very interesting concept for us. So we are looking into that. Yeah, so I think there is opportunity in the startup space for sure. Apart from that, we are also looking at stocks. So, in March, you saw this massive dip. So I usually stay away from stocks, but this was you had to look at it because in March, I think it went down by whatever 80% or 70%. A lot of these stocks. So we started looking at some stocks again with a fundamental analysis view, and just taking on some blue chip stocks that were available at a bargain price. But overall, still remaining with a short term view. So I don't have a long term view on stocks because my problem with stocks is that because it is so liquid, it's very difficult to create a discipline on stocks, right? As an asset class. If you compare it with startups and real estate, like in startups and real estate, well, real estate is still easier, but startups, you're locked in, right? You cannot like get in and get out whenever you want. I mean, even in real estate, like to do a transaction, there's a lot of time and effort that goes into it. Whereas in stocks, at the click of a button, you're buying and selling stock. So the behavior that it creates across is very different, right? So it's very hard to stay disciplined on stocks because you're seeing the price movements, you're seeing the portfolio move up and down every day. Nobody is coming in pricing my real estate portfolio or startup portfolio every day. So it allows me to sleep better. With stocks, I lose my sleep. That is my fundamental problem with stocks. So but nevertheless, because it was a good opportunity in March for sure, and we are seeing a lot of volatility. So with the short term view, we are also looking at stocks. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Vinod. And Vinod, one thing I think that stood out from what you shared was like entrepreneurs who actually come up with ideas and solutions when times are tough, and you mentioned the word grit. That's an interesting analysis of situations, isn't it? Because sometimes when you think about entrepreneurship, it's all about solving a problem, and then you scale it up, and everyone wants to be in the happy place. But when you talk about entrepreneurs who come up during tough times, and they seem to have a certain resilience, you know what I mean? And that's interesting to hear from you,
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what we look for. Like, I don't want someone who knows very well to spend money, right? It's not about just throwing money and solving problems. Then anybody can do that. The reason why there is so much value in a startup founder um, is because when they are backed up against the wall, they will come up with creative ways to get out of it, and they will find ways to growth hack, right? So if I want more customers, it's not about spending money on online ads. That's what we look for when we are in a normal, even before COVID. That's what we would look at, right? So that's why we would stress test and try to understand their way of thinking, and but this, what COVID creates is a natural situation where the let's call it the non-gritty entrepreneurs will not come into the situation, will not come into the picture at all. They will automatically get weeded out. So if somebody is now coming to the market to raise funds, just think about that, right? They have a lot of guts and courage even to just talk about raising investment now, because they will get grilled really badly now by investors, right? So because everyone's very risk averse, so they will only talk about the worst case scenario. So if you have a plan where even in the worst case scenario that you can actually make money, then that is interesting. Right?
Potential. Thank you, Vinod, for sharing that. And Vinod, moving on to our next question. If you look back to the time from when Konglo Ventures commenced operations, what would you have done differently, and why?
So a couple of investment decisions that we did early on, maybe I would have done it differently. Where there was one where we kind of rushed into it, right? So we got very excited and just jumped into it, let's say. There was another one where we thought we can help them. We actually got operationally involved. So, as investors, you shouldn't do that, or think that, this is interesting. And there are some gaps. We see the gaps and we think we can close the gaps. Doesn't happen. So there are some learnings for sure. But, that's part of the process, right? So you make mistakes, you learn, and then you go on.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vinod. And Vinod, coming to our last question. So what are the life and business lessons that you would like to share with someone who is planning to start a business in the startup funding space and tech space in general?
So as an entrepreneur looking at a new idea, I think you have to be very clear on why you are doing or why you want to get into it, right? Because it's not easy. You hear all these stories in the media about, the success and, let's say, the lifestyle of startup founders. But what you have to keep in mind is those are a handful of founders who make it out of maybe hundreds of thousands who are trying to do that. So the success ratio is very small in startups, right? And why is that? Because, and I think here's a definition issue where you need to understand that when we say startup, we are really talking about a specific type of business that has the potential to grow exponentially, and that has therefore the ability to raise, like, consume funding, right? And provide a return, like superior returns to investors. So the problem now is, you think of a new business and everybody thinks that any new venture is a startup, right? So that's where some confusion is being created, where I would say majority of the businesses out there are this conventional business models, right? Where you go linearly, where you have a, fixed product or a service, and you can have a very a good forecast of the cash flow. But the startup that we, in venture investing, we are talking about exponential growth, and that's something you need to understand. So, because otherwise you will go into it with the wrong expectations, right? So understanding, I think exponential growth is key. So do you have an idea where this is possible? That's the first thing you need to understand. And that means you have to solve a very big problem, because if you're solving a very big problem, that means there is a very big market size, and that market size is sustainable. So it's not something that can be easily replaced, or there are alternatives, because if that problem can be solved very easily, then your opportunity goes away. So you have to identify a problem which is, see, all problems don't need to be solved or are not equal. I mean, you might have identified a problem, but how big of a problem is it, right? And then the way that you've solved it, and you're growing the business, can it grow quickly and in an exponential way? Only then can you attract venture financing. So that's my and you have to really think hard. It's not an easy path. So be sure of why. If you are sure of why you're doing it, you're not doing it for the wrong reasons, then go for it, right? Because it's an amazing journey. You will experience life in a very different way than in a regular career path. So the entrepreneurs that I've known for the past, they grow much faster. They evolve as people very fast than the rest of us, right? So it's highly recommended, but know that you're doing it for the right reasons.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Vinod, for sharing your thoughts, your life experiences, the decisions, some of the key decisions you made in life in starting Konglo Ventures with your friends, out of trust as a foundation for that venture, and this new business you are pursuing in Philadelphia in the US, in real estate. So we thank you and we wish you the very best into the future, and we thank you for the time that you've given us today. Thank you, Vinod, and wish you the very best into the future.
Thanks, Tony. Happy to talk to you, and also wish you all the best with your endeavors. Right?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Vinod.